Sure. Hi everyone, I'm Grandmaster Magesh Panchanathan. Welcome to US Chess School chess class today. I had an interesting idea of doing something about thought process. So here we are. Today we're going to work more about our thought process more than anything else. I know you're all pretty much capable of finding answers. That's not going to be the focus. What I want to focus today in the process of finding the answer. So that's basically what we will be going through today. So I have a few positions. We'll go through them. We'll try to see as much as we can, and then I guess we'll take it from there. So the first thing I want to kind of start is, okay, so the position you're looking at is actually a study, which is kind of obvious to, yeah, Aradhya is pointing out. I think it's easy to point out studies and compositions. And I think to work on your thinking process, studies are very, very useful. And also to work on your calculation. I see some of you giving moves. Don't do that yet. Not yet. Let's not rush into it, because like I said, I'm more interested in the process of how we are going to solve this position. And that we will discuss, and we'll go into that. But yeah, don't jump into any moves or anything yet. So the main focus would be basically identifying the problem. So I'm going to break this down a little bit, right? So in any given position, if it's middle game, end game, doesn't really matter actually, whatever positions we get. I have an end game and a middle game position too to look at today if we have the time. But of course I have some studies to go over first. So we'll see how we go with that. But whatever the situation is, the first thing is always the key to identify a problem, right? What is the problem in the position is the first thing. And the next thing is potential solutions, right? And if the problem is tough enough, in most of the cases that we'll be looking at it today, it is going to be reasonably challenging. So you're not going to be able to just, see a problem, solve the problem, which would be much easier for people, at a lower kind of tactical level, you would be like that. Yeah, see a problem, solve a problem. So, okay, we are not doing a Kahoot today. I'm sorry. I don't have a Kahoot prepared, unfortunately. You do really well in this, in the exercise, and we'll talk about other things. Okay, so first, again, I'm seeing people typing in the answer, which I know you can all try to solve. You might get the answer, you might not get it. I'm going to first make this a bigger deal for everyone. So you get only one shot at the answer. So if you're going to type in a variation for me, keep in mind that you get one shot. And if your answer is wrong, your answer is wrong. So I guess this should hopefully hold you off before giving me multiple variations. So let's not do that, right? So let's start with the first simple thing. I think the first thing is quite easy. Yep, that's good. You can always point out some things, but let's go step by step, right? Just even if you can run much faster, in this particular case, I'm asking you to run with my pace just to kind of talk about the process. So let's start with the first question. I just want you to type in chat, what is the problem in this position? I think it's quite straightforward, but still I like to start with the basic understanding. What exactly is the problem? Okay, so I see the chats coming in, and I would like as many of you as possible to be actually answering. The more I can see, more engagement I can say can actually help. All right, I think some of you have given the simple problem. Angela, the question was, what is the problem in this position? So we are talking about the thought process of how to solve a problem, and then the first point of that is usually always by starting and saying, I want to identify the problem. Okay. I don't know if I have too much background noise. I have some kids here, so. All right, I think most of you have simply identified this. So let's move on with the first step of this process, which is very, very straightforward. There is a pawn on c3 that's queening that cannot be easily stopped, right? So let's just move on to the next step, yeah? So c2 and c1 is queening, and I have no way to stop it. So what is the next step? So Alexander, if you're thinking along the lines, there's nothing wrong with that. My question though is that your final answer? And I want you to think a little bit more about how you arrived at that. I know sometimes we don't want to focus on that, particularly if you're so used to studying a lot of physicians, answering a lot of questions. Sometimes you do this naturally and you don't even have to think about it. Today, I want to kind of bring that out for everyone, even if you can calculate everything quite fast. Let's go through one step at a time, right? There are two potential ideas, in my opinion, for white here to continue. So I want first all of you to try to see if you can see two potential ideas. And Brian, if you're chatting something, try to make sure you just do it private. Let's not do public chat. Thanks. So Daniel, I think you're working on the idea. That's very good. But I'm going to ask you to answer my simple question. I see white has two ideas. First, is it possible to spot two ideas? If you see two different potential ideas for white, I want you to type the two different ideas that white can follow here. You don't need to write this in terms of variation. You can also type in terms of ideas to see. Okay, Arnav, that's one of the ideas. Very good. What is the second one? Let's see. I think both your ideas are same, right, Arnav? I don't see it seemed to be a different one. Royal, the first one, you gave me one idea, correct? And I want to say one more thing to everyone in this. Unfortunately, I've had this experience in other places, so I'll also want to make sure it's just a simple warning. Most of you don't have a problem. But here's the thing, right? When you're doing some calculation, work with me. Don't use any engines. Don't use any assistance. It's absolutely useless for anyone. So let's just try to calculate everything on our own. And it's okay to make these mistakes. There's no point in checking an answer. So let's just go step by step. Again, this is not to suggest anyone is doing anything, but just I have to issue this warning. Unfortunately, in the times that we are currently, we are having a lot of problems with people trying to find easy solutions. It's not going to help you or help anyone else. So if you're trying to solve this, let's go one step at a time. Okay, so Darren has given me a second idea as well, right? I think most of you have come up with some simple ideas very quickly, which is fair enough. Austin, unfortunately, chess classes, chess tournaments, everywhere. Unfortunately, in every single possible situations, we have encountered this, and this is a big problem that we are all trying to deal with. And it's a community thing. So all of us together will hopefully deal with that and stop it. But okay, let's just move on to the actual point. So I think there are two main ideas that have been established so far. Now, how would you know which idea should you pursue? I'm kind of interested in asking this question, right? How would you know which idea would you pursue? Pursue. How would you decide that in a game, or how would you decide that if I give you this puzzle, which one are you going to think? Which one are you going to try to achieve? But you, Ashish, you don't get to calculate everything out, do you? Like in an actual game, will you be able to calculate every single thing by brute force? And RRD, the same question, yeah? You won't be able to. So one of the points I want to really emphasize today in our class is that your skill at discarding bad variation is extremely important as finding good variations, right? So if you spend, let's say I give this position to you, I think all of you can solve this. I don't see a problem with anyone not solving this. But the difference would be how much time you take. And that will make a big difference in a practical game, right? And that might be the same difference between Magnus Carlsen and me. You give me a position, I might find the best move eventually, right? If I have unlimited time. But the beauty with the world champion would be that he would figure out the point within a certain time in a practical window, which can be applied in a game. So how is that possible? That is usually possible if you stick to the main variation. So if there is a critical point in the position, identifying that critical point and spending more time, that is looking for moves, candidate moves, looking for variation, checking your evaluation, everything should be happening in that critical line. If you do that, yes, you're definitely going to get a very good shot at solving the position. If you are spending your time elsewhere, you won't be able to do it, right? So let's see. I'm also going to look at the chat now. So Alexander, I like how you're going with the thought process now. Thanks for going with the flow. Okay, so I'm going to ask at this point, I think we've kind of considered the two main ideas. One of the thing is most of you have considered the bishop to c6, which is very reasonable. And some of you considered king to e8 with the pawn to queen e8. Yeah. And let's see which one should I just pursue. Simply play king e8, e7, sorry, d6 and b7 and let black queen. I think it's kind of easy in this particular case. I mean, not king e8 directly, guys. Well, by the way, king e8, king c7, and take. I can play king e8 first move also. Yeah? You cannot play king c7. And also use the chat to private message, please. Thanks. Alexander, you're definitely in the right direction. Yeah, you're definitely in the right direction. Like I said, I think most of you are able to calculate very well. Okay, I'm going to change this chat so you can only chat to me, so we don't have to worry about this anymore. Okay, Aradhya is saying playing the bishop. Wait, is my audio a problem? Is anyone else facing an issue? Okay. Sometimes, unfortunately, huh? Okay, I'll try as much as possible. There's a new microphone set that apparently is creating some issues. But okay. Going on, the main question is, should I pursue bishop c6 idea or should I pursue king e8? Who wants to tell me? You can put an exclamation point if you want to talk about it. Okay. Right, I don't need an answer, like I said, right? I need a process of why you're going to pick something. I don't want any final variations. I'm not interested in that.
All right. Okay, I have more positions to go on with, so I'm not going to spend way too much time here. So I'll also tell you a little bit of what I would do. There is king e8, and then there is, of course, the bishop coming to c6. I really like bishop c6. In this case, it's a little bit with calculation directly, is that because king e8, let's say c2, d6, c1, d7, what will black play? Just tell me a move, guys. That's all. Both cases, what I will do is I'll look for a defense for black. That's right. So most of you are finding the move. This is simply queen c6, yeah? Now, any other move, I think white is still in good shape. I mean, at any point, pawn takes and bishop takes can be interposed. That's okay. But queen c6 is really the problem, right? Once I play queen c6, you know that the pawn cannot queen. Then you also know that the queen can start checking around. And at that point, I would say it's probably a draw. I don't think black can win this, but it's probably a draw. So queen c6 is the kind of move that makes me not, like kind of let that go. I want to be excited about a variation. That's what makes me calculate a variation. That's what makes me pursue a variation, right? Your intuition tells you that there's more to it. So let's calculate the bishop c6 variation so far. Yeah. So you go the bishop to c6 and you take. Now I've gotten couple of different ideas. So let's see. How many possible ways are there for me to get the bishop to c6? Aradhya would be correct. I think some of you are saying 2. I don't think there are a zillion ways, Ryan. We'll wait a little bit, Ryan. I'll at some point definitely give you a chance. Ashish is saying he liked an idea first, but then he didn't like it afterwards. Royal is looking at another problem. Okay, I like that problem that you're noticing. So there are 4 possible ways, guys. I'm going to tell you there are 4 possible ways. This is again the point I want to pause and tell you that I don't want you to just calculate the first variation that comes to your mind, right? I want you to always take a step back and carefully look through the position a little bit. The problem with, this is what the correct approach is, but the problem is sometimes we always run with variations, right? Most of you gave me one path within the first 2 minutes, right? I'm not saying it's wrong. You might be intuitively even correct, right? But the problem I see with that is that if your path was wrong and you're kind of exploring that a lot more, you don't even know where to go next, right? So my best point that I want to say here is that there are 4 paths. The correct way to approach this is like very quickly scan all the paths and say, okay, how can I achieve this, right? And then try to decide, or once you spot the idea, try to decide, is there another way I can do this? And then make sure you achieve that, or make sure you identify all those, and then problem solve. Yeah. Let's see all the 4 possibilities. Yeah. So right now, I can bring the bishop to h3, d7, and c6. I'm going to actually remove this e8 problem that's not there. So bishop h3, bishop d7, bishop c6 is one possible way. And I can bring the bishop to b5 in 3 different ways because I can take on f3, I can play e3, I can play e4. Yeah. All of these are simple possibilities for me. So again, how do I know which one I should do? Right? I think if I want to go to c6 through b5, the option should be pretty straightforward. Alexander, you're correct. Yeah. Because what I would do in my mind is I would play the most obvious move first. right? So remember this, usually in my calculation, I always find a winning idea or let the idea that I have or my opponent have run through freely without any resistance, right? And then see the reaching position, the end position, is it actually winning? Then if I do find that position to be winning, then I'll take the next step and come back and say, okay, how can I stop this? Because you don't want to reach a position that's you're not even sure if it's winning. That's basically setting a goal, right? You don't want to end up somewhere that you don't even know if it works. So if I'm bringing the bishop to b5, I want everyone to write in chat, right? I know you calculate e takes f3, but there is a problem. And how do you solve that problem? I think everybody pretty much at this point knows. I wouldn't go to the result yet, but type in chat, what is it? E4, E3, or E takes F3? What will solve the problem? All of us have it. Okay, so E3 solves a simple problem, right? So E3 is going to, okay, Ryo, I'm going to tell you very simply, you have given me nothing but a variation. You've not given me anything else. So if you want to participate something, I would request you to write some actual questions that I answer. So if you just give me moves, I'm not interested in, you should not be interested in this class either, because like I said, this class is about your thinking process. I want to talk about what exactly is going in your head and how you're coming up with these moves, right? So if you're just going to tell me moves, it doesn't help me, it doesn't help you. So let's move back. So E3 obviously stops queen G5. Yeah, because the problem with e takes f3 and e4 is because when I queen, I get queen g5 check, and it's again a draw. So e3 simply stops that problem. Now, is there any other problem? I think some of you told me there's another problem. Royal, I see you're going with the final idea after the problem. Yes, so. And since most of you are already here right now, I'm just simply going to go with it. There is a potential stalemate problem, yeah? So right at the beginning of this position, you actually have to notice that. It's like a calculation problem, right? So the problem with this, I mean, or the position as soon as you set up, right, in studies at least, you can have some idea to say, okay, what is the study about? You can see the king and the rook cannot make any moves, and the only pieces that can move are the two pawns. So potentially there's a stalemate idea, and you should have realized this like right at the beginning, which means there's a queen takes c6 idea. By the way, um, why does bishop h3? Why can't I go bishop h3, bishop d7, bishop e2? I think I need to also ask this question because it was a possibility that was considered, and some people calculated it too. Why not this possibility? I think the answer is pretty same. Yep. Okay. Good. Good. So the reason why I'm asking this is because when you play bishop h3, most of you naturally went for, or actually I wouldn't say most of you, some of you went for a natural f takes e2 variation because that pawn is hanging. And then when bishop went to d7, e1 pawn queens, and bishop to c6, and suddenly black is stuck. And I have no good moves, and this moves, sorry, this moves pretty forcing. And I think black should be lost here, right? Yeah, I don't see any, because any of the checks, the king moves, black is still not having any stalemate possibilities. The pawn on c6 can move. So problem is actually still the same. Out of 4 possibilities, every single possibility runs into the same problem: queen and queen g5 check. And that's why e3 clearly solves that problem. So now the last problem to solve is queen takes c6 is a stalemate. Now I see the answer from a couple of players already. Royal has given me an answer, and um, Royal has given me an answer. Who else can solve this problem now? Let's do another couple of minutes to think about it. So the idea is basically you play e3, then I play c2, bishop b5, c1. If you play bishop c6, I'm simply going to take it. Well, when we say maybe Aradhya, I think that's already a good point for us to say, okay, how can we, that might not work, right? So Darren, how would that help? You can elaborate on your variation a little bit more, because remember I told you a variation needs to excite me, right? If I get to a certain position and it's like, wait, so the reason why bishop b5, bishop c6 excites me is because it's a forced checkmate threat I have on a8, and I know black's life is hanging by a thread. So whatever the problem is going, if I solve it, I know I'm winning, right? So that's why that variation excites me. Alexander, you got it? Um, Aradhi, I'm not so sure if you will be able to solve your problem with that idea. So I don't know if I don't think you guys, I mean, you'll have enough time to play king d7. Okay, I'll give you one more minute, and then I guess Rayo badly wants to give the move an answer, so you can answer after a minute, Rayo. Okay, anyone else? I haven't heard from some of you today in chat. I see only about, I don't know, 5 to 10 people chatting with me on a regular basis. I know a lot of you are actually thinking about things, and today, particularly for this class, right, because it's a thinking process, I would like to hear as much as possible, because then I can tell you what kind of mistakes happen in our calculation, what kind of questions that take us in the wrong direction. Only then I can, for example, I showed you a very nice problem. Like after bishop h3, f takes e2 is a very common way to think for black, right? You're like, oh, f takes e2 because now the bishop is actually giving up the e2 pawn. I should think about it, right? Yes, Daniel, you did send your answer. I don't know exactly what it was though. Cooper, you're right. You're still facing a couple of problems. You're still not exactly there how to solve it, right? Okay, so I guess, but that's okay. Even if you don't solve the problem, again, I'm today not too worried about exactly. I mean, of course, it's great to find the solution in the end, but you want to make sure you solve all the problems. But most importantly, you want to follow the process, right? How do you identify these problems? How do you do the candidate moves? How do you pick these variations? How do you discard the bad variations, right? Those are important stuff. Sarvagna, correct? You also got it. All right, let's see. Now, let's go to Ryo and let him give his answer.
My answer is to play e3. Can I say the answer first and then I'll tell you why?
Yes, now you can say the answer.
Say the answer first. The answer is e3. C2 is forced.
Forced.
And now the idea is bishop b5 c6. So queen. And now bishop c6. And now and he has no check, so he has to take the bishop.
Hmm.
If we take, it's stalemate.
Hmm.
So we have to take the rook.
If you take, it's a game in, game over. It's a stalemate. So we take the rook.
Yes, he has to take with the queen.
I have to take with the queen because king takes pawn takes e6 is winning.
And e4 and the queen's trapped, and it's soups wrong.
Daniel wants to promote to a rook. Yes, that would very much be possible, Daniel. You can do that. And e4 is a zugzwang. Now, I have a question for you, Rayo. Okay.
Hmm?
Now, when you initially, I'm assuming you initially first saw the stalemate, yes?
Yeah.
Queen takes c6 is a stalemate, right?
Yes.
Now, from here, going into b takes a8 or finding a different move, how did you pick what you should do?
Where?
Like, for example, you look at a variation, right? So let me go back here. So let's say we look at this king e8, yes? So c2, d6, c1, d7, queen c6. We saw this variation and we kind of discarded this. We all agreed to that, right?
Yes.
So we didn't spend any more time on this. We discarded this variation. Yet, when we saw a problem in this particular variation, we actually went further and solved that problem. How do I tell
No,
the
because
difference?
because like the two ideas I saw was either just pushing the pawn or taking the rook with the bishop and helping the pawn.
So
So
you
yeah,
basically continued calculating
I
game move.
continue because like and if e4 and pawn takes f3 doesn't work, opening up the diagonal doesn't work. This has to work. So then I just needed to go deeper, probably. That's what I thought.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Raya. Okay. So what I'm going to just point out right now. So the question I asked is actually the most difficult part, right? So when I talk to my students, I tell them, do not jump to any conclusions, right? Take your time. Chess is very complicated. It's very resourceful. Lots of things are happening. And to the same students, I tell them, don't waste your time on bad variations, right? So the question usually is, how do I not waste time on bad variations if I discard them? To discard them, don't I have to jump to conclusions, right? So this is where it gets tricky. So you have to find this perfect balance. You have to find out which ones are bad and discard them. You have to start looking for more and digging up in the ones that are actually going to help you find the answer, right? And I think the simple way, let's see, Alexander, also the candidate move is correct, but also it's more of a how you evaluate the end position is what I wanted to discuss in this particular thing, right? Between the two variation, intuition plays a role, but in this case your evaluation is as important as your calculation itself. You can calculate 10 moves ahead, but if you evaluate the end position incorrectly or too quickly, your your whole idea is waste, because your decision making is all based on the evaluation, not just your calculation. Remember that, right? You might find 4 different branches, 5 different branches, but the best move or the idea you're going to pick is based on what you think the end result is going to be, right? So here, for example, if you be a little thorough, you know that there are two candidate moves. Actually, one is b takes a8 and one is d takes c6, right? Brian, I'm not sure why when you're talking about putting the king on d7, I'll come to that in just a second. So this is, if you conclude this, right, as a draw and go to a completely different move variation, then what you've done is you have not completely been thorough in this, right? So when a variation doesn't work, I retrace it one step at a time, one move behind, right? I won't go to the first move and change it. Again, I'm saying I won't do all these things, but this is technically what I shouldn't be doing. You can catch me in a tournament game or solving puzzles doing all these mistakes, of course. But I'm talking about what the right way to do is, and I do make these mistakes too. But I'm just telling you what the importance is, right? Actually, it's not simple positions, Alexander. In forcing sequence, you're going through forcing sequence. You have to see through it. You cannot end a forcing variation without seeing all the forcing moves or concluding in between, right? If there were two or three more forcing position moves and you decided no, it's not so important, and I think it's just I'm going to intuitively make a decision, you've probably made a mistake, right? So that's the main problem with this. So now let's look at this other movie looked at, right? You're actually out of forcing moves. You have to calculate this, yes, but at this point you know that it's not making a big difference. White is out of forcing moves. Nothing is exciting for me here because if the king moves, I can check anywhere. I know that. Pawn takes pawn, or if the bishop moves, that might be even worse because the pawn will take and queen. So basically, I'm out of forcing moves. So it's safe for me to conclude here. It's safe for me to take a step back and look for everything, check to say if there's anything happening, and then make a conclusion, right? So it's kind of important that you find this balance, right? Which variation to discard, which variation to think. So if I, let's say, give you 15 minutes to solve a position like this, the biggest reason why I see sometimes my students not solving it is because out of the 15 minutes, 13 minutes they would be calculating some other variation that they should not be calculating. For example, king e8, because they didn't spot queen c6 or something else has happened, right? Or bishop h3 f takes e2, right? Because they ran through the variation so quickly that they assumed that after bishop h3 f takes e2 is the only move, right? So yeah, this is probably the main thing that I want you to learn from this particular example. Now let's move on. So there's basically the answer is beautiful zugzwang in the end, which now all of you have seen. Now let's move on to the next position. Let me pause the share. Okay, we have the next position to look at, and this position is very um, interesting to me because I think I was a FIDE master, an international master in a coaching camp. It was a 1 month chess camp with Grandmaster Vladimirov in India, and that 1 month he we did so many end games and we worked on so many things. Grandmaster Vladimirov, Evgeny Vladimirov, a great trainer. So this study particularly was interesting because he gave us this study and we had like, I don't know, 10 or 15 students trying to solve it, and this one ate my brain. It took me a long time to solve it, and it was, so that I would say it's very interesting in terms of problem solving, right? Figuring out the problem and solving it. Right, I'll tell you, I'll type the name after it's done. Let's focus on the position, okay? So first question, as always, I want to see who can identify the problem. Now, you can also define the problem as a variation if you want to. You can put it in words, or you can define a variation to say this is the most straightforward thing I could do, but it didn't work because of this. I want all of us to start with that step first. It's white to play. You don't pick any colors. You basically are trying to find the best move for white. It doesn't matter what the result is. So try. I like how you defined your problem. I think you're jumping right into the most serious issue. Okay, I think in this position, like a generic idea that the pawns are queening might not be good enough, guys. I know it's definitely a problem. Yeah. In the last position, I think that was more easy to define it like that. In this position, maybe it's more interesting for me to get a variation. So give me a variation. Michael, if you've seen this, you can type in the answer to me, and I can verify it's correct. You can still try to solve it step by step. So Austin May, I see a variation. Is that what you're defining as a problem, or is that your final answer? I want to just be sure. So Michael, if you forgot it, even better, no problem. Then you can just continue to solve it, right? Just solve it like anyone else. The only thing with positions you have seen, sometimes they drag you along this memory lane unnecessarily. Forget that. Forget what you remember. Just go for what you can calculate. Okay. So Rohan, I would just basically like variation, guys, for this one, right? Sometimes it makes more sense to like jump into the most important variation. Like I said, actually, I'm also going to use a timer here, right? In the first 5 minutes, I want to see who's calculating the most critical variation, right? That'll help us. So I want to see what is it that you're trying to do and what's the most critical variation. You're playing white, but I usually don't take sides per se in terms of analysis. So, but it's white's turn to play, so you're thinking from starting move as white. Yeah, I think Ashish and Troy are the two players who've given me a real problem so far. But that is also like a starting problem, by the way. Ashish and Troy, if you gave me that problem, that's still a starting problem. That's like not the main problem. There are multiple problems that you might face in any calculation, which is very obvious. Yeah. If you want to achieve a certain goal, there could be lots of hurdles on the way. Aradhya, I'm not so sure. I can stop the pawn in a variation with rook c1, I guess. Why can't I do that? My check is working. Yeah. I have a crazy microphone. It's like it just suddenly stops working, and I have to like pull these things all over the place, and it works. I have like a very important question to ask at some point, but let's get to that. I want to see how someone is going to land on the most important variation. That's what I'm interested in first step. I'm not interested in who's going to solve the position. I want to see who is going to be trying. Remember, I told you there are multiple ways you can look for solutions, multiple problems that you might face. You want to see which one's important, which one you can discard, right? That's the thing we're talking about right now. Cooper, I'm not so sure why that is interesting. You have to think a little bit more. It's remember I told you last time, do not stop a variation in the middle of a forcing sequence. Let's see, Ashish, what are you talking about? Okay. Ashish, I'm sure that position is lost. Austin May, that's correct. That's a dead end. Yeah, Ashish, that end game is impossible to defend for white. So we're about, I would say, around the 5-minute mark. I see 4 minutes, but I'm sure I started the time a little late. And I have to say, I don't see the most critical variation. And also know why that is happening. Alexander, are you switching the variation now for black? I thought you gave me a variation that was winning for black, didn't you? Did you find a winning variation for black already? Oh, you didn't. Okay, maybe I'm mixing your answer with someone else's. So then, yeah, then you're looking for something for black. That's okay. Okay, so we have gone through about 5-6 minutes. I would like someone, any one volunteer, to tell me what you have thought about in this position so far. Who wants to speak? Right, I'm going to let Austin tell us. Okay, Austin, what have you seen so far?
Rook e3, king g4, knight e2, knight d3, and rook c2. So kind of all the most forcing moves are like the most logical moves first. So like rook c2 cuts off the king so that there might be some sort of checkmate, or you might be able to win the queen. Knight e2 because it's a check. Knight d3 because it's preparing rook c1, and then this knight f4 if king g2. But I realize that doesn't work because black has king h2, And king g4 brings the king a little bit closer to the black king, so you might be able to checkmate him. And then all the other moves are kind of like they're not as forcing, so they might be a little bit more difficult to calculate than starting with these moves.
Okay, first of all, I have to say very good job, because you've been thorough with the possible candidate moves, right? This is again, so there are, in today's class, if I'm going to talk about multiple things about a thinking process, one of them definitely is to be thorough with all the possibilities. Yeah, so very good. So we have seen all the moves, right? Now, is there any variation in this that you feel like that's interesting? Because we're not done thinking yet. I want to know, if you're going to, what is it that would you pursue? Or at this point, you feel like you're hitting a dead end in everything?
My first thought would probably be king g4, because I've seen this in, like, there's some endgames where it's like a king and queen against a king and pawn. Is you can let black promote the pawn, and then if you can bring the king and the queen close enough, then you can force checkmate even if he has a queen. And same thing with the king and a rook against a pawn. If you can bring the king close enough, you can force a checkmate. So I'm kind of using kind of like the same pattern. So that's why I'm thinking king g4, and then after the pawn promotes.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Austin. Anyone else want to share more? Anyone else who wants to tell me a little bit more about your thought process or what you did? What you have done so far in the process of finding the answer here. Okay, Cooper.
I thought so. I thought that, so you have to somehow use the forcing move so you don't lose your rook, because if you lose your rook, it's a draw.
Okay.
And yeah, I was also thinking about some kind of mating idea with king takes g4 and using the knight and rook and king to either win the queen or mate the king.
Question is, what is the best you have so far for white? What is the best out of the variations, out of the things that you've seen so far?
King takes g4.
Okay, tell me what happens after that.
Then he queens.
Okay.
And then I thought knight e2 check.
Okay.
Followed by king f2.
Okay.
And then knight g3.
Okay.
But then I saw queen f3, so yeah, that wasn't working.
Yeah, see, the thing is, remember I told you, I want you to work on variations that really excite you, yeah? Unfortunately, I think, Cooper, you suggested this, Austin also suggested this. King g4 is a move that you have to discard much easily, because after I queen, I'm looking at possible ideas for white, yeah? So knight e2 check seems to be the only candidate move I can think of. Any other move, I don't see it to be forcing. If I play rook e3, rook d3, they're all creating a threat of this winning this queen. But the queen has a gazillion moves to go out, yeah? I have some queen d5, queen c6. I can just take the queen out anywhere. And it doesn't look so promising. So the only move, knight e2 check, seems to immediately get into trouble with king f2, right? So king g4 has to be discarded. Troy, I'm actually, can you answer the question? Can you talk? You have a very interesting question, which I wanted to ask everyone.
Is it the one that I just asked?
Yes, the one that you just asked.
Well, is white trying to win this position? Because you can go for an endgame like knight d3.
Okay.
And then knight d3, h1 queen, rook c1, king moves to h2 or g2. Probably h2 to avoid knight checks. Rook takes h1, king takes h1, king takes g4, king g2. I'm calculating this variation. When we're down a pawn, we can't win. But I'm not sure if it's satisfactory or not.
Okay, good question. I think this is a great question. I want an answer from everyone. What are we thinking? Is white trying to win or is white trying to draw? Okay, so definitely win, Aradhya. Cooper says win. Ashish is saying draw. White is trying to win. Intuition says win, feeling says draw. Alexander wants to go the other way around. Okay, so only one person who's saying definitely draw, I think, is Ashish. So let's see if you can tell me, Ashish, what is the reason for you to think that way? Can you speak?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I couldn't see a way to even like checkmate black, so I guess it's like a mostly a draw.
Now, it
Yeah.
looks like Austin also figured out something else, and I'm going to ask this question to you. I think some of them said, why can't I just make a draw with rook e3 and rook e1?
Or rook e3.
Did you consider this move?
Yeah, I almost said rook e3, bishop h6.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah, I only looked at king g4, not king. Yeah, king g4.
Well, you're calculating after rook e3, I'm guessing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I saw bishop
Okay.
h6 and I
So I
thought
think-
that's lost. Yeah.
Yeah, this is game over, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. Were you the one calculating this knight
Yeah.
d2, knight g3 endgame?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, I
So you
saw-
asked me if you can hold this one, and we decided that this is just not possible, right?
Yeah, I saw bishop f2.
Bishop
Yeah.
f2, and there's no way the knight's stopping the pawn from queening, right?
Yeah.
This is just lost. So let's come back again. Where is the draw then? Let's ask someone else. So Ashish, thank you. So you're telling me that white is actually trying to make a draw. And for those who think white's trying to win, I want to see where you found a draw, right? Actually, the problem is white draw. That's what we're trying to find out. Right? Every variation that you're thinking, that's an easy draw. It's actually white is struggling for a draw. Let's look at even the knight d3 variation. And after I queen the pawn, you played check and you took this one. And king takes g4, king g2. White is struggling to make a draw. Yeah. Okay. But this case, I think this should be a draw. Because I think the black king cannot reach the knight on d3. And maybe something like this. And then maybe this, and king f3. I think this should just be a draw. Just leave the knight on d3 and just keep moving the king between g3, e3, and f3. And I don't see how black can make any progress here. So let's leave that. But the point I want to ask is that somehow the most critical point of the result, not everybody understood that, right? White is playing for a draw. Now I'm telling you, your thought process is going to change a lot. The moves you're going to find, they're going to change a lot. Everything that you're going to look for is going to change a lot the minute you understand that. White is trying or struggling to make a draw, which means now black is going to look for a way to win. Most of the variations, you didn't even try probably different variations for black to win. When the position ended in a draw, maybe you just let it go. You thought that's okay. Is there rook d3? Yes, it's rook d3 is possible. So by the way, there is rook d3 possible. Rook e3 we know is lost. Yeah. Knight d3, we've calculated one variation within that. I'll just tell you rook e3 and king g3 are lost. We have just concluded that so far. Nothing else has been concluded. So I will let you guys think again. Now so what we are doing right now is trying to find a potential solution, right? We don't even, so first we have understood the problem. So we don't have a direct way to make a draw. We're looking for a potential solution. So between knight d3, knight e2, rook c2, rook e3, which move would really work is what we're looking for right now. So I'm going to see some of you are using a chat to try rook e3. I'm going to give a couple of minutes for you to first only just decide, are you going to pursue rook d3 more? Are you going to quit on rook d3? That's the first decision. You can look through for 2 minutes, try every variation you can think of. And then remember, there could be more after that, you don't know. But for 2 minutes, I want you to think about rook d3 and tell me, are you going to pursue? Or are you going to discard it? Daniel, the variation you've given me is pretty much the same variation we saw with knight d3, I think. Yeah. White sacrifices the rook for the h pawn and picks up the g pawn with the king. That endgame is a draw. We concluded that. Just to give you guys a little bit of a way to move forward. Let's not worry too much about that endgame. H and g pawns are gone, and white has a knight. That's a draw. White's not looking for a win. Black is looking for a win. Black should be finding different moves. If you reach that endgame with black, I would say black is the one who's looking for different moves. Alexander, I think you might be onto something. Okay, so let's see. I want every one of you to type in chat right now. Just one decision. Are you going to pursue rook d3 or are you done with rook d3? That's all. If you like rook d3, say rook d3. If you say don't like it, just say no. Okay, I'm getting a lot of no's. Can you tell me why no? But I actually only got some people to tell me some reason. I guess, does anyone, I mean, I know most of you at this point didn't have enough time to maybe calculate all the variations, but at least to some extent to tell me why you didn't like it. Yeah, you saw something. Okay, Daniel, I like what your reasoning is. Alexander, I like your reasoning. So Alexander, maybe you can share with us and tell us why you let it.
Yeah, I'm not completely sure this is correct, but I think after King F2, Rook, Rook D3, King F2, Rook D1, Black has G3, and
Okay,
then
so this is what makes you feel like this might not be the right thing to do. Yeah.
yeah, but I might be missing something.
But I like what you're saying though. This makes a lot of sense because now the pawn's going to E2 and G2. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if I can play E2 also here. Can I? But E2 then just some knight D3
Rook
check might
E2.
also come. Yeah. But Austin is saying E2 is also E2 is a draw. Okay. Yeah. But black wants to win, right, Austin? So I guess G3 makes a lot of sense for me because knight D3 check I think runs into King E2. And any other move maybe G2, and that doesn't look so good, right? All right, thanks Alexander. So I'm going to discard Rook D3, guys, unfortunately. So if you're spending more time on Rook D3, you'll be much further away from the answer. Unfortunately, we're doing this the hard way. We're doing it like Stockfish, eliminating all the bad moves. In a game, this is the opposite of how I want you to calculate. I don't want you to look at every possible move. I don't want you to eliminate all the bad possibilities to find the best move. That'll take you years to get answers. So in a tournament, in a game, when you're calculating, it's usually the other way around. Oh, I see someone's in the waiting room. I hope I didn't have them waiting for too long. Um, okay, so you're kind of down to 92, 93 and Rook C2. I think there is a reason why you should look at one move right now. There is a move you should look at right now because I gave a conclusion about some position that should tell you that there is a move that you should just be looking at and not waste your time on any other move. What move is that? It's plain because I gave a conclusion about something. I want all of you to type in that one move that you think you should be looking at. Correct. Kevin, Sarvagna, Cooper, Austin. Good job. So some of you still went in a different direction. Let's see if I'll ask one person who did this. Sarvagna. Why did you pick that move?
Oh, I guess like 93, there's just some type of like 93 Rook C1. It just seems a little more because like 93 stops King F2, so it just kind of restricts the king to the back rank. So I was thinking 93 over 92.
Fair enough. And also the end game that you're reaching out of the variation. What did I say that end game was? Yeah. After knight D3, let's say Queen H1.
Mhm.
You play Rook C1 check, yeah.
Yes.
King G2, then Rook takes, King takes, and King takes G4. What is the result in that end game?
A draw.
It's a draw. Correct. Yeah. Thanks. So basically, we have a drawn endgame if black doesn't find anything better. So it's black's job to find something better after knight d3. So that's why you should be looking at knight d3. So if I tell you that you have not even found what the problem is, would it be a little depressing for you guys? It might be, yeah. What is the problem? What is black even going to do after knight d3? No one has given me that. Okay, now g3, I'll play rook c1 check, do some calculation, yeah? Because now I have some knight f4 check because I'm one move ahead. It's not the same as before. One move ahead might change everything. Hold on. Don't give me moves. I see a lot of you giving moves. Let's take a step back. Do some candidate moves. I know the time is almost up, but I want to make sure we finish this up, guys. So probably about 5 minutes. Yeah. I mean, we're spending more time on arriving at the process. So clearly this example is showing us that finding the problem has been very challenging. It's not even finding the solution. We have not even found the problem. Okay, so let's do some calculation together. Okay, G3. I want to know if this is very critical, right? I want to calculate G3 to see if it's very critical. Alexander, by the way, you found the most critical point, right? What is white's move? Let's use a chat. Tell me. What is the white move that you're thinking about? Rook C1 check. Good. I will calculate this for sure because that's a very forcing move. I know some of you are typing king G4, knight F4, but Rook C1 check. Why not? Yeah, it's a forcing move. Send the king out. I know where the king is going to go for sure. Yeah. Okay. So the king goes to what? G2. Question for chess in general. If you know that the move is best, should you calculate more variation just play it? Is it purely a psychological thing for your opponent and knowing what you're going to play? Troy, in practical play, you have to trust your intuition. But when you get to positions that are concrete, right, you have to back your intuition with calculation. So that's the kind of short and long answer for that. If you think that you found a good move or a really good move, then it's not very practical for you to go back and look at candidate moves and look at lots of other things. But it is necessary to scan through a little bit, right? The only reason I say that is because if you go down a path and you hit a roadblock, you will know where to go back. If let's say you calculate just one variation and your variation didn't work, you'll have no place to go back. That's the reason I say that, okay? All right, now let's come back to this position. I'm going to look at rook check king here. And again, knight F4 check, probably a follow-up check again. So I guess if I go king here, can I play another check? Maybe another check, yeah? If king F3, I think maybe I can play rook F1 check. If king F2, I don't know. I have knight D3 check and knight H3 check. Let's try, which one should I try, guys? I could also try to play king G4 now, but king G4 now, G2 will still probably lose, yeah? Actually, will it lose? Not 100% sure even here. Yeah, even G2 might still run into something. But yeah, knight D3 check, knight H3 check. But at this point, I'm going to tell you that don't you feel like there's like so many things happening for white here? I mean, it seems like, I'll go back to the point. Are you excited about this variation for black? It shouldn't be, right? I mean, I don't even know. There's so many checks coming in. There are so many defending moves that are coming in. I'm not threatening anything yet. I need like a couple of moves to really do something. Even G2 I can take. Actually, yeah, right. G2 might be the threat, but it's not really such an obvious thing. So I do not like this. I don't want to waste my time on G3. I want something more forcing. And I think somebody has already given that. So I'm going to go with that. What is the most forcing move you can see here? One more problem I'm noticing is that after finding an idea, you should make sure you apply it in different variations. You cannot look at an idea and discard it. Say, you know what, in that particular branch, I saw that move and that's it. Great. But I'm not going to look at that. It's an idea. Thank you, Cooper. I saw someone else also kind of saw it. Austin, Sarvagna, correct. Bishop h6 check. You already saw bishop h6 check, right? You have to start applying them in multiple places. So once an idea is there, this applies in middle game too. If you see an idea for yourself or for your opponent, you know that in the next 2 or 3 moves, that idea can come in different ways. It might not be exactly the same thing, but it might happen in some other different ways. So it should always be running in the back of your head. So if you found rook e3, bishop h6, and you're not calculating knight d3, bishop h6, that's wrong. That's just not right. Right? You see a forcing possibility and you just ignore it is not right. King to g4 and e2. This is the actual problem. So since we don't have a lot of time, I'll give you like 3 minutes. Let's see if someone can actually solve this problem. Yeah, the problem took 30 minutes for us to figure out. So Aradhya is making a point to say, can we try king f4 in the first move? Again, this would be the next question, right? Would you discard this and go look for another move? which is correct, which is again a very, very difficult question. But here I'm giving you a clue. The answer is here. The answer is still here, so you still have to continue. By the way, these are studies, so they tend to make you think ridiculously different. So Austin saying, how come endgames so few pieces, so many complications? Austin, I'll give you king and pawn in games that will make your head spin. If this is fewer pieces, sometimes you will get king and a few pawns, and you'll have like 1,000 different variations to calculate. I'm sure some of you have seen some Turetsky's in-game manual positions. Okay, so far what did I get? I got 95 from Alexander. I queen on wait, 95. What? Yeah, 95 queen on h1. I don't see how that's going to continue anymore, because the only check I see is, well, I see knight f3 check or rook g3 check, but it looks to me like, I mean, you don't really have a huge follow-up. Okay, the next option I'm getting is rook to c2, h1 queen, and rook to e2, and we have rook e1, rook e2 perpetual check. But the problem, I would say, that's actually kind of interesting. Let's see, rook c2, I queen on h1, rook takes e2. But after e1 queen, knight takes e1 still works for you, because h1 queen, knight f3 check. King f1, knight h2 check, king e1. Yeah, that actually kind of might be the problem, Alexander, because after rook c2, I queen, and after knight takes, I queen again here. And then when you play knight f3 check, I go here. The thing is, there's no rook c1. That makes a big difference, right? And actually, is there king g3 here? This might be quite interesting. Okay, I'm not going to go too much into this, guys. Again, since we're running out of time, I'm trying to see if I can direct you guys into the most obvious variation. So some of you suggested you can play rook a3 or rook b3, 100%. Yeah, why not rook a3 or rook b3? What do you think black would do? If you queen and play check, I take your queen and it's a draw. Okay, bishop c1 doesn't only delays it, right? I play rook a1 or something, and what is going on? So draw is correct. If you play rook a3, I'm going to play e1 queen. After knight takes e1, I'm going to queen h1. Okay, let's do like a last minute for this. By the way, the variation we saw, again, I'll nudge you to find within that variation. So very close. Rook a3, Austin, you don't need to play bishop g7, yeah? You can simply play e1. Bishop g7, I can simply play rook b3, I think, yeah. Rook a3, e1. That's the variation you should be calculating. Okay, fixed it. Crazy microphone. I would hate to go out on mute without giving the final answer. There's no bishop f4 check. I mean, black is going to queen now. What is white going to do? Black queens, of course. King g3, knight f3. No. I gave you a clue. This is a study. Think of the most ridiculous move, and that'll be the answer. Aradhya, I think, can come up with the most ridiculous move. Thank you. And Austin. Good. Now that all I have to give you with a clue is to say it's the most ridiculous move. Knight to g2 is a draw. I get a big what? Yes, knight to g2. You're actually threatening rook h3 to trap the queen. That's the best part. I mean, taking this queen rook g3. If king takes, you play a couple of checks, you win the queen, and also you're threatening whatever move, bishop c1, bishop wherever I go, you play rook h3, and you trap the queen. I have to take the knight, and you play rook g3, right? So again, a really nice bishop f4 and bishop h2. Can you even do that? Bishop f4, maybe even if I take, isn't that a draw? Oh, by the way, I'm threatening rook a1 check too. Don't forget that, Austin. The reason why I said rook h3 is a threat is because if you play bishop c1, then I'll play rook h3. That was a secondary threat. My first threat is to play rook a1 check to take your queen, of course. So, all right, guys, this is a great place to wrap up. But what I want to tell you is that there are thousands of studies out there. There are thousands of positions that you can do for tactics or long calculation, right? What I wanted to teach you today is basically how to think about, how to go about solve these problems, right? So the main thing I want you to, if you think of it as like a takeaway, I want you to remember that you have to first identify the critical position. So this is like a skill in its own. Whether you solve the problem after you get that is the next part, right? In any given position, can you identify the most critical problem and just start zoning into that? How good are you at doing that? Try to break down the process that way. So then you will know the next 10 studies you solve, you will know that, wait, in 8 of these studies, I was not even calculating this move. And I look at the answer, right? Let's say you give yourself 30 minutes to solve. And at the end of the 30 minutes, you check the answer and you're not even thinking about that move. So now you know that you're not even close to the critical variation, right? So you will know the difference in that sense. Okay. So break it down like that, and hopefully that will help. All right. So studies, I think there's a database. It's a very nice database that's available, which I recently bought. I forget. I know it goes something like HH something. Hold on. I'll tell you the name, guys. It has like 10,000 studies or something like that. Fortunately, I can't find the name. Can't find the database right now, of course. Okay, HHDBV1. I forget the name of the website. If somebody else knows that, they might be able to share it. What is wrong with knight e1 instead of rook a3? Okay, Troy is asking one last question. If you go knight to e1 directly, what if I queen? What's going on if I queen? How is rook g3 a draw? Because if I go king f1, you don't have much after king f1, I think, right? You thought king f2 and maybe knight d3 check and rook f3, yeah? That might be a repetition, you're right. If I start with king f2, again, candidate moves, king f1, and it doesn't seem to have anything. Yeah. All right, so, all right, guys, that should be a good place to stop, I think. Hey.